Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to unpack the story of a brand that pulled off something most marketers can only dream about, getting over 1.5 million monthly visitors without spending a single dollar on ads. So how'd they do it? Well, that's the secret we're about to get into. Just look at this number for a second. 1.6 million. That's how many people are hitting their site every single month. That's not just traffic. That's the kind of audience that builds an empire. And here's the real kicker, the part that sounds almost impossible. They did it with zero ad spend, no viral videos. And here's the big one, they did it with a brand name that, at the time, basically nobody was even looking for. So how on earth did they pull that off? You know, this is genuinely one of the most shocking growth stories out there, and it was all built on a strategy that was, amazingly, just hiding in plain sight the whole time. So try to put yourself in their shoes for a minute. You've built this amazing product, something that's actually super useful, but there's this huge, almost fatal flaw baked into your business that's keeping you completely stuck. And that flaw, it actually has a name. The invisibility problem. Now, a lot of businesses deal with this, but this brand was basically experiencing a masterclass in being completely invisible to the exact people who needed them the most. To really get the problem, you first have to understand what the product even was. They built this tool that was like a digital bridge, right? It connected all the popular apps we use every day. You know, things like Gmail, Slack, and Google Sheets, and it made them all work together automatically. I mean, it's a fantastic idea. In this slide, this right here, it just breaks down their entire dilemma perfectly. On the one hand, what they wished for was people typing their brand name into Google. But what was actually happening, people were searching for their problems. They were literally typing how to connect Gmail to Slack. And that was the core of it all. The demand was absolutely there. The traffic was out there, floating around. But because nobody knew their name, they were totally invisible to all those people who were actively searching for a solution. And then they had a breakthrough. Just a single idea that would completely flip their entire strategy on its head and launch them on this path to absolutely explosive growth. This was it. This was that lightning in a bottle moment. They decided, you know what? Let's stop trying to force people to search for our brand. Let's just go to where they already are. They decided to target the problems themselves. So how do you turn a big idea like that into an actual actionable plan? Well, for them, it came down to this really precise, repeatable 3-step strategy. Now, on the surface, the plan sounds almost deceptively simple. First, find what they called hidden gold keywords. Second, start what they called a silent expansion. And third, set something called the engagement trap. So let's break down what each of those actually means. All right, so step 1 was all about a shift in mindset. They completely ignored all those big, flashy, vanity keywords that all their competitors were fighting over. Instead, they got laser-focused on the exact phrases people were using to describe their very specific pain points. And this slide just illustrates the point perfectly. They were going after phrases like connect Gmail to Trello or send Slack messages from Google Sheets. Now, sure, on their own, these keywords have way less search volume. But, and this is the key, they have incredibly high intent. The person searching for this needs a solution like right now. So once they had their list of hidden gold keywords, they moved on to step 2, the silent expansion. This was all about execution and, more importantly, scale. They started creating content to answer every single one of those specific problems. And they didn't just dip their toes in the water. No, they went all in. They started with 1 blog post, then 10, then 100. Their ultimate goal was to build this massive library of over 1,000 pages, with each page targeting a unique, high-intent problem. It was like a slow build that eventually turned into a complete avalanche of content. But here's the thing, just creating a ton of content wasn't enough. And that brings us to the final and maybe the most genius step of the whole plan. They didn't just write articles, they built each page to be a complete, self-contained solution. They called it the engagement trap. And look, it's not as sinister as it sounds. The whole idea was to create content that was so ridiculously useful that a user would land on the page, find their exact answer, and have absolutely no reason to click the back button. They did this with simple, step-by-step guides that solved one single specific problem, and solved it perfectly. Okay, so what happened when they put this whole 3-step plan into motion? Well, the payoff was nothing short of astonishing. Just look at this chart. $0 in ad spend, zero viral videos, and yet over 1.6 million organic visitors every single month. This wasn't some lucky fluke. It was the direct result of their strategy. They essentially built a content machine that pays them in free traffic month after month. So when you boil it all down, the ultimate lesson here is pretty profound. The secret wasn't just about finding clever keywords. No, the real traffic, the high-quality, valuable traffic, was hidden inside the problems their customers were already talking about. By solving those problems, they basically forced Google to reward them. So, we've talked about the strategy, we've talked about the problem, and we've seen the incredible results. But there's still one big question hanging in the air. Who was the brand that actually pulled all of this off? Which company used this problem-first SEO strategy to quietly grow from this little invisible tool into an absolute giant in their industry? That brand was Zapier. Yeah, if you've ever needed to connect two apps online, I guarantee you've probably landed on their blog. They are the undisputed masters of this strategy, and it's exactly how they quietly came to dominate the entire automation space. And that leaves us with one final, really powerful question to think about for ourselves. Zapier found their success just by listening to what people were asking. So what invisible problems, what high-intent questions are your customers searching for right this very second? Because the answer to that, well, it might just be your own million-visitor secret.